We are witnessing the rise of a fatherless generation. Statistics reveal that this isn't just an issue, but an epidemic. The story of fatherlessness is written into the hearts of our generation. It is heard in our songs, seen in our movies, and read in our books. It is a story of shame, loneliness, and rejection. A story of missed potential and wasted opportunity. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Fatherlessness is a driving force behind gangs, teenage pregnancy, drug abuse, and even suicide. And all too often, the fatherless are either marginalized or ignored. In this fatherless generation, we have men and women who have been wounded by the absence of their earthly father. We need to reconcile this generation with God. We need to find those impacted by fatherlessness and provide the ultimate solution, and that's introducing them to their heavenly Father. So the question is, how can the faith community, the church, begin rewriting these tragic stories? On today's show, we look at an outdoors ministry called Truth in Nature that seeks to be a place of refuge for fatherless boys. Through the love of men and women, Truth in Nature uses the outdoors as a platform to disciple and share the gospel with young men. Today I talked to Jeff Davis, founder and executive director of Truth in Nature, here on the Falling Forward podcast. We discuss his ministry that continues to grow with chapters in Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Michigan. It is evident that God has placed Jeff and his wife Carrie right where he wants them, pouring their lives out into those who need to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, using creation as a place to share the love of their Creator. We need men and women like Jeff and Carrie who took a leap of faith to start a ministry that is partnering with others to reach a fatherless generation. We hope you enjoy this insightful discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. My name is Dakota Adair, and you're on the Falling Forward podcast. The Falling Forward podcast exists to encourage Christians to continue to gain ground in their faith. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And thank you for joining us as we have insightful conversations about never falling back, but falling forward in the Christian faith. Awesome, man. Well, it's I'm thrilled to have you on.
Well, I'm glad to be, man. I appreciate you having me on.
It's man, you and your wife super special to me, because when I first started going to West Ridge Church in Dallas, Georgia, we served together in the hospitality team.
Yeah, man, that was a good time. It was we enjoyed getting to know you as well, man. We miss you around there.
Yeah, I'm because I didn't grow up in church, so I never really had a chance to stay at one church and be there and serve, and so y'all just loved on me and get to know y'all, and got to know at the very beginning that y'all loved the Steelers.
Yeah, that was the thing. You remember the story when my wife and I got married. She's from Pittsburgh, and of course I was a born and raised Georgia boy. So the agreement was I would like the Steelers if she'd like the Bulldogs. Go Dogs, right?
That's that's funny. That's marriage right there.
That's it, man.
Compromise.
Yep, that's it, man. You gotta meet in the middle, right?
Yeah, and I just loved you guys, because I remember whenever I was starting out, I just loved having those long conversations. I think service was at 9:00, or I had to be there at 9.
Right. Yep.
Or I had to be there 8:30, but I showed up at 9.
Yeah.
I was young. I was young in my faith, and I was just so thrilled to serve. And I remember we just had awesome just conversation. I would just be done with the football game that the previous Friday, and so we would just sit there and talk about that. And it's just a special moment, man, to serve and to be part of that, because I love how Westridge just encouraged for us to connect with people that were new, and we love doing that, but also just each other.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was like it was almost like a family within your church family, your serving team. And it was, Westridge really does that stuff right. And you're absolutely right. They just really encourage it. And it was a blessing, because I don't think outside of that serving opportunity, I would ever have crossed paths with you. So it's really cool how that all worked out.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and here we are. But so just want to bring you on to the podcast and just talk about your ministry, Truth in Nature, which you have spoken about in the past and what you do there. And so as I've grown older, I've been able to follow what God is doing in the ministry. So, man, Jeff, I would love for you just to share how it all came, all it happened, how it came to life, Truth in Nature. Share your story of this ministry, because you were the founder and executive director, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I am. Carrie and I both come from a background that a lot of boys that are growing up in a single parent home or a fatherless type situation come from. Carrie's father passed away when she was 12. And, as moving out into the world as a young man, as I was going through that transition, my parents got a divorce, and it was a real hard time for me and my brothers to go through that. And that was just kind of our background and our life story there. And after we were married, we tried to have kids on our own, and we found out that that wasn't to be. We went through a real hard time there trying to figure out, why, we weren't allowed to be, mom and dad. That was a desire God placed on our heart, but it was something that just wasn't meant to be. So we really did a lot of praying, just praying for what our what our purpose, our mission as a couple, as a married couple, would be. And God just started slowly revealing that to me in 2008. I grew up in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, camping, doing stuff like that. And so I'm sitting there thinking, what can a good old, redneck country boy do to glorify and reach others for the kingdom? And through some prayer, through some discussions with some trusted friends and mentors of me and Carrie personally, we were able to look at our experiences as, experiencing divorce in my family and experiencing the death of a parent in her family, and really not being able to have kids of our own, as working with these boys that don't have a father figure in their life. And so in 2009, Truth in Nature was created, and we stepped out on faith and just created this ministry. And we've been running since 2009. We've been able to expand into other locations, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little while. But that's kind of the foundation. That's where we started. That's how we got it kicked off.
Wow, because so you met a passion. You seen there was a need, and from the experiences y'all had, and how God kind of used y'all. You were able to use that to start a ministry, and just kind of connecting a passion with the need. And I love that.
Yeah.
So how did that come about when you started out? Like, where did you start? Say, all right, we're going to start a ministry, and maybe a little bit of the beginning of starting the ministry. What are some things that you remember starting out? Like, because at that point you didn't envision what it would be today.
No, not at all. I mean, that was such a, God's really showed up and showed out over these last, 9 years. And, we started out, it was me and Carrie. I grabbed my brothers as my first mentors, and there was 4 boys in 2009. I was like I said, I was working a full-time IT career as an IT manager. Carrie was working a full-time administrative career. This was just something we felt God say do, so we did. And, we got our 501, nonprofit stuff situated and all the back end stuff set up. But when we started running, we were very small, and we didn't, we were just as scared as some of these boys were, like wondering, our first program is so cool because Carrie says, I love looking at that picture of the first program we have, because we look like we don't know what's going on just as much as those boys don't look like don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? So, but we were learning, we were anxious, and over the next 2 years, through 2011, God really started to define what Truth in Nature was as a ministry and what it was going to be. Over that next year and a half, I was laid off from my job. And as an IT, I was 16-year IT manager, and I was called in and laid off with half the IT department, and sent the jobs over to India. And it was one of those crossroads. You look back at life and you say, okay, I could have taken that opportunity to pause Truth in Nature and focus on my career and see where God was going to take that. And but that's not where we felt God leading us. Instead, I jumped full force into Truth in Nature. Stepped out of the boat. I didn't have a paycheck or anything like that to start, after those first 2 years, because it was just something me and Carrie were doing in conjunction with our jobs, and as a ministry, and now it's become a full organization. It wasn't long after that God blessed us with our first chapter down in Louisiana with a guy named Michael Rivers who started up down there right northeast of New Orleans in Bush, Louisiana. And so yeah, man, there was some scary moments there to get started off. I mean, there was a lot of faith. 2011 was a huge faith building year for us when we stepped out of the boat and started to really see where God was going to take this ministry.
Wow. So just as I'm listening and thinking, what was that moment, maybe after a big event, a fishing trip, wherever, that you stood back probably with you and your wife and was just like, this is truth in nature, or just a moment where you felt that you were part of something bigger than yourself?
Well, I tell you, man, we still continue to have those feelings. We just, it was, as soon as I took that step out, I had a severance package from work when I got laid off, right? And so we knew I had 4 months or so that I was just going to get paid like I normally would. So there really wasn't a whole lot of, shall I say, risk there. I knew for 4 months I had a steady paycheck coming because that was my severance. So 2 weeks, check this out, 2 weeks before that severance package was due to run out, my boss calls me from the job that laid me off, and she says, "Hey, we got our bonuses, our performance bonuses for the last year." And so she said, "We're still going to give you guys the bonuses that we laid off because you helped us achieve those performance goals."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Okay, great, that's awesome." And so she said, "But you are a manager, so you get 60% of your salary from last year, one lump check." And so at that point in time, that was enough to put in our account and go through that next year and me draw a salary, just that one, and that one, right as my severance was about to run out. And I said, "Okay, God, you got my attention now." So I knew
Wow.
he was providing. He's a faithful God, and he was providing for me to be able to continue to work towards, getting this ministry, under, further along.
Wow. Cause, man, God did show up and show out.
Yes, sir.
So what was kind of, starting out or that first year, of Truth in Nature, what was your target, individuals that you wanted to really reach with this ministry? And how was it impacted in the very beginning of this, of starting out? What is there a particular story that you can remember of maybe a kid who didn't have a father that joined in Truth in Nature and was impacted? Because I've seen that you and your wife, like y'all travel the country going to graduations with kids that y'all have invested in, which is the beautiful thing. I mean, even as you're telling me some of this, I didn't know about. I mean, it's hard for tears not to kind of almost want to run down your face, because I'm glad this is just audio, because it's a beautiful thing that you're telling me, because you're seeing all the process. So what are some stories, man, that you have for the listeners to kind of resonate with?
Yeah, man. Well, one of our original boys, and this is a cool, full circle type story. One of our original boys named Tanner. He started our programs from from the early days. I mean, he was one of our original boys, and he grew to be, basically he was like a son to me and Carrie. I mean, which a lot of these boys are, but he was one of the first ones that were like that, and we started developing that relationship with, and he was in our programs for 6 years. His mom had to move to Texas, and so he moved with her right before he graduated high school. It wasn't 2 weeks after he had moved away, after being in our programs for six weeks, he called me and he said, "I've really been thinking about some things that my father didn't do for me, and wasn't there for me with, and I want to forgive him." He said, "I remember all the stuff you guys talked about forgiveness and Truth in Nature, and I want to just go ahead and forgive him." And so I really prayed with him and encouraged him to do that, to forgive his dad for basically just not being there, and that's a huge step for a young man. And so he did it. And I don't know that he really got the response he had hoped for. I'm not sure really what kind of response he had hoped for, But 2 weeks after that, he called me and he said, Jeff, he said, I've done that. He said, and it is what it is. He said, but I'm ready to give my life to the Lord. And
Wow.
I tell you that Sunday afternoon when he called and told me that, my wife could tell what was going on. Carrie could tell what was going on the phone, and I could just hear her praying and crying over in the kitchen, just sniffling and stuff. And I knew the Spirit was working. And right then and there on the phone, Tanner asked, God into his heart, Jesus into his heart, and to
Wow.
save him. And it was a very powerful moment. That was one of the first ones that God, blessed me and honored me with, helping to understand who they were as a young man in Christ. And Tanner has moved on, and moved on to Michigan with his. He's got an uncle that lives up there. And I tell you what's cool is he's getting ready to graduate basic training here in a few weeks, and super proud of him. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to go to that graduation, but his uncle now, by being exposed to Truth and Nature because of Tanner's involvement, is now starting a chapter in Newberry, Michigan, starting up in June. So
Wow.
that is a story that is just full circle, man, and it's cool. It's just cool to see how God works. So
Wow. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
yeah,
I mean, and even the fact is that if you start that ministry and for just Tanner to accept Christ, it was worth it all,
right,
Um,
absolutely, man.
that's awesome. So real quick, I want to dive deep and transition a little bit. So how does it work? How does Truth and Nature operate? Explain to the listeners and myself how exactly. What do you do? Where do you start at? What exactly is Truth and Nature? If you were to go to a Truth and Nature event, what are you going to see?
Yeah, so Truth and Nature is a program. It's an outdoor ministry and mentorship program for boys that do not have a father, middle and high school age boys, that are being brought up in a home by a single mom, aunt, a grandparent, something like that. So any boy like that that's middle and high school age are welcome to come into our programs. And so if a young man just comes to our programs, basically they're every month we have a program, and they come in on a Friday evening after school, or maybe some of the chapters have a day only offering on a Saturday. But the mentors that are from the local community, guys from usually the local partner church that our chapters are partner of, the mentors and the boys come in on a Friday night. We have dinner. We have time just, hanging out around the campfire, talking man time. We call it kind of man time, where everybody's just catching up with everybody since the last program, seeing what's going on. And we're just talking life with them, just really just being real with them. And then we have a dedicated time where one of our mentors or one of our program directors or something like that will lead a devotional time, and maybe share some personal testimony or just share really what God's laid on their heart. And then after that, we have dedicated prayer time or some small group time or just some time or reflection time around the fire before we just, kind of goof off for a little while and then go to bed. And there's a lot of powerful stuff that happens on them Friday nights. I'm not going to lie. I've had young men, come after some of those talks and want to, give their life to the Lord. I've heard, other program directors talk about that as well. And just a lot of men, young men just come and be going through something. It's not necessarily a spiritual matter. It's more of I guess everything's a spiritual matter, but you know what I mean? It's more of a peer pressure or something like that they might be going through it at school that they want to step away from or something like that. But then Saturday morning, we all wake up and we're in outdoor ministry. It's a bunch of guys that love the outdoors. So we do fishing, we do canoeing down a river, some of them river tube. We do some hunting, stuff like that. It's just all based around the outdoors. So Saturday, these boys are rubbing shoulders with these mentors around a fishing pond, catching fish, or, out on a boat or down a canoe, down a river or something, So, and then after that we conclude, and and then we'll have another program coming up the next month. But in between those programs, as bonds and things are made between mentors and boys, you'll have mentors contact boys in between those programs just to check in with them. It could be as simple as a text message saying, hey man, what's going on with life? How's life treating you? Some of them go grab burgers with them. Some of them will actually come to the property or our camp facility and cut firewood, in between programs. So it's a continuous year-round program, man. At
So you're kind of
every location.
so you're kind of creating this discipleship in the outdoors. create an opportunity for older men to connect with fatherless boys. So a few questions just for the listeners' curiosity. So why exactly you decided to channel boys, and why the outdoors?
Well, I can answer the outdoors for one thing, because that the outdoors is something God gave me an interest in, and so that's the easiest way for me to get this started, was because of my interest in the outdoors and my, I guess, gifts in the outdoors. And I'll tell you, man, when you get a boy around a fire, when you get a group of men around a fire with young men around a campfire, we'll all start getting taken down. You start cutting up with them. You're out in the outdoors. You don't have a phone sitting there with you. You don't have. You're just sitting there, and everybody's just kind of on the same playing field around a campfire. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
sitting in the boat fishing or something like that. And there's some strong bonds and some very cool life change that can happen in God's creation. And so that's why. And boys, because boys, in the early days, we thought about, the girls, the single moms, that kind of thing. There's ministry for everybody, but our mentorship we just solidly focused on boys, because I'll tell you, man, men in this country today are really, young men we're missing it, man. You look at the stuff that's going on with teenage suicide and harming themselves, and substance abuse, and even school shootings and stuff like that. A lot of these boys are growing up without a dad, without a strong man in their life, and a lot of that is male related. And so, man, I'll tell you, it's just, and back when I started, I didn't realize, some of the things we were going to be standing in the gap for, and some of those are just those things I just mentioned. So,
Wow.
I've sat in our property, with a boy crying his eyes out because he's thinking about harming himself, and so, it's a lot more than just taking a kid out fishing, man. It's doing life and jumping in full force with these boys.
Wow. That's so awesome, Jeff. I was laughing. I was thinking, like, man, the way you described it sounds like a bunch of rednecks that love Jesus, but, but in reality, I've seen some, and I've talked to you. There's some guys that go out with y'all that you would not think that would be in the outdoors,
right?
That you've kind of invited people into. They go fishing, and that you always brag. You used to talk about how you used to go to Lake Altoona and go. Was it striper? You catch striper, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
And but like, I love how you invite some of these guys to come out with you, and they're like, man, that kid's really good, doing that. And sure enough, man, they have they're out there with a fishing pole. And so just talk about some of the people that you've invited into Truth and Nature, that it's not just, you're even inviting people to experience the passion that you have for the outdoors, and a lot of other men that help with this ministry.
Yeah, it's there's opportunities for men, really from all backgrounds. You need to like being outside. You can't just be one of the guys that like to be up, inside. But you got to like being outside. But you don't have to be an expert on how to hunt or how to fish or how to build a campfire, or how to canoe or anything like that. You just need to make yourself available to be present in a boy's life. And basically, you just need to make yourself available to be present. Once a month during our programs. And granted, God's going to use you, and God's going to move in your heart, and you're going to develop a relationship with a few of them that you keep in touch in between programs. But I've seen so many men, our mentor core base group. We have a mentor retreat every year in the spring, or in the late winter, early spring. And to see these men come together from 6 different states, and fellowship with one another, it's a thank you for them for being a part of our ministry, but to see them come together, and they're from all backgrounds, man, all walks of life. But it's just cool how it's created not only the ministry to these boys, but also it's created a byproduct ministry to these men.
Wow. Yeah, because I've noticed I love how it's very inclusive, because I think with men that love the outdoors, like my father-in-law, he was on a previous episode, and just he's grown to have the passion for teaching other people about the outdoors, and it stems from a passion to lead people to Christ. And I think it's natural for all men to love the outdoors. We just got to get out there. I love to talk a little bit, just your, what kind of, as far as your wife's role, I'd love just to ask a little bit, what role she plays in the Truth and Nature. Cause I know that she's y'all are one of those married couple. Y'all are best friends. It's admirable to see. Y'all just seem like y'all love each other, but y'all are just like best friends. Y'all do life together and y'all enjoy each other, which is a beautiful thing to see. When I talk about the Truth and Nature, I always talk about you and your wife and how y'all just, it's one of those things where y'all, this a genuine love for people, and especially guys without fathers. So just talk about your wife a little bit and her role in the ministry.
Well, hands down, man. I mean, I couldn't do it if she wasn't on board with me. I mean, there's no ifs and buts about that. I mean, she's a blessing. God put us together for a reason and a purpose, and this is truly it. She does so much stuff on the back end for the ministry that it'd take me all afternoon just to tell you about it. But you know, when we first started, she made sure everything was in order on the back end, all the details leading up to a program, all the food, meals were prepped and prepared, and came to the programs and you know, not only did she plan and prep it all, she you know, moved forward with it and served it all as well. And just, you know, what she adds is that now that's created a model where a lot of our chapters, the program directors that are running the programs, their wives are just as involved in the chapter and doing that and helping them and partnering with them on that back end stuff. So Carrie's kind of created that model, and man,
Wow.
I tell you, God's used her, man. She's a blessing, and like I said, there's no way Truth and Nature really exists without her being a part of it, you know?
Wow.
So.
That's special. Cause I think, yeah, that's one thing with y'all are an example of a couple, y'all are kingdom minded, that it's just not about being married and being happy. It's about being holy and impacting, you know, God's kingdom. And y'all are doing that through this ministry. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about maybe the day y'all got married, that when she was walking in the aisle, would you know that what y'all are doing would come alive, that God had a plan for something much greater than you would ever imagine. And so let's transition a little bit. I'd love to know, just explain and share where Truth and Nature is at, and talk about the different chapters. I love how you included that you actually have a mentor retreat. So you're doing a lot of different things. You're discipling, you're discipling the students, the guys, the fathers of the guys. You're discipling the men that are over these chapters. You're also encouraging for wives to be involved in the ministry, but share also what exactly Truth and Nature is at today, because it's incredible what God is doing and how the ministry is really expanding.
It is, man. It's really cool how he keeps lining up these men through relationships that I have with other men, and putting the same burden for fatherless and single parent boys on their heart. And you know, over these last 9 years, as I mentioned before, we started in Dallas, Georgia. That was our first chapter. That in 2 years, 2.5, 3 years after that, we started Bush, Louisiana, which is northeast of New Orleans. And a couple years after that, we started Columbia, South Carolina. Rick Hall and his wife Kim are running that chapter. We had a guy named Matt Hellman that started the chapter over there, and really got some good legwork in over there. And since then, man, you know, those three chapters are still running strong. You know, I've been able to get in front of the ministry because we had a guy step forward, and Don and Leslie Brooks, to take over the Dallas chapter, just the program responsibilities from the Dallas chapter. So I've been able to get in front of it. And now we're expanding it, like, as I said earlier, in Newberry, Michigan. We've got another chapter that's starting up in Apex, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Raleigh, and LaGrange, Georgia. So God's land, and we've got some on the horizon too. That's, you know, we're still working on processes and back end stuff. But man, so and these last three have all happened within the first 4 months of this new year. Or since December of last year, for the last 4 months. So God's geared us up, and now he's really showing out on where we're headed. So
wow,
so it's cool. It's really cool.
That's incredible. I live in Fort Worth, Texas right now. I'm going to seminary at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and I am frustrated because I'm like, we need a chapter in Texas.
I agree, man. Let's do it.
Of all places. So I hope that anyone that listens to this would feel, just feel the passion that Jeff has, and what a vision that God has placed in your heart, and so that can partner with you to expand and reach these fatherless guys, that don't have a father in their lives, and they ultimately lead them to Jesus through Outdoors ministry. So is there anything particular that you're praying for, man, that you're talking to the Lord about? What role have you played since it's growing so much? Has your roles kind of, your responsibility kind of shifted anyway? What do you kind of oversee as far as, since it's growing at such a fast rate, man? It's just really reaching the country.
Yeah, a lot of my prayers focus on obviously time management, but mainly just godly wisdom on these next chapters that we're setting up, making sure that we're putting the right guys in the right place where God wants it, and not just putting a chapter out there for the sake of putting a chapter out there. A guy's really got to want to. He's really got to have that heart for these boys. Otherwise, it's really just, he's not the right guy for a program director. But you got to have the heart for it. And so I'm just praying for godly wisdom, as I lead, because I've had to. Like I said, I've had to step away from the transition out of the program director responsibility. So it does leave a little void there with me, having that direct connection with the boys. But I still keep in touch with some of them as I can. But now I'm more mentoring and leading these program directors, who in turn are leading their mentors, who are in turn working and discipling these boys. So kind of a chain reaction down through all that. But yeah, my main prayer is just godly wisdom, and for God to lay this on other men's heart, and for them to find us, and us form that partnership.
Wow, well, that's great. I know, because Brian Bloyd, the pastor at Westridge, he wrote in his book about, he's kind of the helicopter leadership, where he kind of oversees everything, and then when he has to come down closely to kind of check on if anything needs attention, then he'll do that. So, man, Jeff, it was wonderful sitting down and just talking to you and learning more about Truth in Nature. Is there any other information that you would love to share? And also, man, I would love for you to provide any information on how people can get connected with you and Truth in Nature. Possibly they feel, God laid in their heart to maybe start a chapter in their location, wherever that may be, or even the website, to check out your website, anything like that. Any information, I would love you to provide that here at this time.
Yeah, sure, man. Well, first, I just want to tell you I appreciate the opportunity to share. I think anytime God gives you the opportunity to share your story and where he's brought you through, even if it's a ministry or just what he's done personally in your life, you take that opportunity, and I appreciate the platform that you're giving others to do that, and obviously myself. So thanks for that. And as far as Truth in Nature, yeah, man, we're on all the normal social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Vimeo channel where you can look at all kinds of videos, hear testimonies from boys and moms. And our website is truthinnature.org, and that's all spelled out, truthinnature.org. And anybody can contact me through the website. My email, my phone number, all of that stuff is all on the website. And I would love to hear from guys. There's ways to partner with us on the website, support us as a ministry, or support the local chapters in your area, whatever. But I would love to hear from guys if they get out there and listen to some of those videos, and God starts working on them. Would love to come alongside and pray about starting a chapter in their community. Or, I'm always available to pack my bag and come speak to your men's group at church, or a men's group somewhere else, just about what we do and what that would look like. So.
Well, man, Jeff, I was going to say personally, I've just enjoyed getting to know you and your wife, and I'm so gracious for the time that I served in Westridge, how y'all loved on me, and I was so young in my faith and so eager to learn and grow. Y'all were two people that I look forward to seeing every morning at 9:00. And as a young high schooler, I got up just because I wanted to be there for y'all, and I wanted in a weird way. It sounds weird, but I didn't know y'all very well. I want to make y'all proud in a sense. I was so eager to be part of the fellowship, part of the body, And so a lot of that passion stems from that, from the love y'all gave to me. And so even now in my own ministry, you know, there's not a morning where I serve and I welcome people into the church doors. I don't think of y'all, and I miss those moments. But as I've talked about truth and nature, you know, I've one thing I've really highlighted is it's not the ministry, yes, but I focus on the passion and the ministry that God's placed on your heart, because I know that it's so genuine. Like you said, it's not to just to be big and to make a name for yourself. You don't want the notoriety. You're just a good old country boy that loves the Lord.
That's it, man. That's it.
And so that's what all matters, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate that encouragement and those kind words for sure.
Anyways, it's a pleasure to have you on. I hope someone listened to this, and man, we're out.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one.
You too.
Dakota Dare here. You have just listened to the Falling Forward podcast. Connect with us at fallingforwardpodcast.com to join the conversation, access show notes, or reach out to today's guest. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. The song used in this podcast is called Stunts by Arthur Nelson. Find his music on iTunes or Spotify. And thank you for listening, and remember to keep falling forward.